All right, again, we have breaking news happening this Thursday afternoon. Former President Donald Trump has, in fact, been indicted by a grand jury in Manhattan. So we are continuing to follow this breaking news. We're going to go out to our chief White House correspondent, Blake Berman. Blake, I know we're all scrambling to get in place on this. What can you update us with from Washington?
Well, the news is, as you've been reporting, that the 45th president of the United States will be the first ever president in the history of this country to be charged with a crime after leaving office. When you think about the stakes, in that sense, it truly is, Nichole, a remarkable moment that we are witnessing, or at least learning about in real time this afternoon. I'll tell you one of the things that I find interesting about it. It was noted to me by someone recently. How this whole story over the last 10 days, if you go back to it, it was, remember, the former president coming out over the weekend, 2 weekends ago, saying, I expect to be arrested on Tuesday, meaning last week. And so it was really Donald Trump at the time sort of setting the stage. It is always Donald Trump laying out the narrative and saying, this is what I think, and then sort of everyone follows behind that. In this instance, this sort of caught most of us by surprise, at least the timing of it. Remember, we had been told that the grand jury was not going to be reconvening for several weeks. And now all of a sudden we hear that these charges have come down or will come down against the former president of the United States. In a way, it is one of the rare times where the former president isn't sort of in control of the narrative at this moment in time. But you can bet, Nichole, that we will likely hear from Donald Trump himself, most likely via social media, I would think, very soon.
Well, absolutely, Blake. And as you said, I mean, this caught so many of us genuinely by surprise, because we did think that if there was going to be movement on this, either way, it would be sometime in April at the earliest. And here we are, March 30th, and just learning this news. How likely is it that President or former President Trump himself was also caught by surprise?
It's a good question. I mean, obviously, his legal team is in touch with the legal authorities there in New York, and what exactly plays out from here, we'll have to see. But think about all the stakes. Obviously, one, you've got a former president. It is the most, if not the most exclusive, one of the most exclusive clubs in the entire country. The former presidents of the United States. One of them now is about to be going through a legal process since leaving the presidency. That same individual also happens to be the lead candidate in the Republican nomination. Now, no matter what happens to Donald Trump here on a legal front, his campaign will go forward. The president will, unless something drastic happens, will be in Iowa, will be in New Hampshire, will be in Nevada, will be in South Carolina. The context of the political race here can't be lost. What happened today? We saw Ron DeSantis in the state of Georgia, and that state we know has consequences too for many reasons, both politically and on the legal front too, when you talk about the former president. The Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, hasn't announced his race, that he's jumping into the race yet, but all polling shows that he is the main challenger to the president. He was out there pumping his book. The latest polling shows that the numbers between the two are somewhere around 12 to 15 points or so. A gap, but also tight depending on how you want to look at it. So there's the legal aspect of this. There is the political stakes of this. And then, of course, there's sort of the gravity of the moment when you talk about a former president going to be charged with a crime.
Blake, before we let you go, any reaction at this point coming out of Washington? Because, shock here in Chicago at NewsNation's headquarters, and frankly, I'm sure shock all over the country as well as the world.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think you'll see, obviously, Democrats will go in their corner, Republicans will go in their corner, and you can just sort of understand how that'll play out most likely. Keep in mind, though, Nichole, that there were Republicans in the House, Republicans control the House, who wanted to look into the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, and sort of investigate whether or not what Bragg's doing is legal and proper. Bragg had gone back to those Republicans and said, look, you've got no jurisdiction. Congress has no jurisdiction over a legal case in Manhattan. We haven't yet heard from the Republicans on that committee who sort of want to look into Bragg. I'm sure we will hear from them soon. But once again, Donald Trump will undoubtedly, Nichole, dominate the headlines and dominate the conversation here in Washington and in corners throughout the country for the upcoming day and for the upcoming weeks as this story unfolds.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that. All right, Chief White House correspondent Blake Bourbon live for us on this breaking news out of Washington. Blake, thank you so much for that. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.